I've edited over 1,000 thumbnails in the last 24 months for some of your favorite creators. I've spent thousands of hours researching thumbnails across various niches, from dropshipping to YouTube growth and even video essays. During that time, I've found 12 common thumbnail mistakes 99% of creators make that kill their views. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what these mistakes are and how you can fix them to make a banger thumbnail that gets millions of views. You see, when a viewer opens YouTube, he's immediately hit with an ocean of thumbnails. It's a battle for attention, and if your thumbnail doesn't stand out, it's game over. Most people think the secret to standing out is using fancy colors or flashy designs, but the biggest factor when it comes to grabbing attention is simply having a great idea. Because here's the thing, not even the best thumbnail designers in the world can save a bad video idea. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. No matter how pretty you make it, it's still a pig. If you have a solid idea, 50% of the battle is already won. Look at this channel, for example. Their thumbnails look very basic. No flashy colors, no fancy design, but the idea behind their videos is so strong that they've managed to get over 1 million views with just 3 uploads. Even Ryan Grahan admits that he spent months ideating and he won't find a single second until he has the thumbnail planned out. That's how important the idea is. It drives everything. So before you even think about opening Photoshop or Canva, you've got to start with a killer video idea. But even with a killer idea, a lot of creators make one common mistake that completely tanks their videos. Let me explain what this common mistake is with a quick story. One of my friends, James, is a total gym nerd. He's the kind of guy who religiously tracks every workout, logs every calorie, and even brings a food scale on a vacation to make sure he's hitting his protein intake. Yeah, he's one of those guys. Now, if I were to invite James over for a dinner and tell him, "Hey James, I've made the juicy A5 Wagyu steak. You want to come for dinner, bud?" He might or he might not be interested. But if I told him, "Yo, Jamie boy, this steak has over 50 grams of protein in it," he'd be in his car and at my house faster than I could say medium rare. That's the exact effect you want your thumbnail to have on your audience. Your thumbnail should not only grab the viewer's attention, it should make them say, "I need to watch this." A lot of creators have a great thumbnail idea, but they fumble when it comes to positioning. They position the thumbnail in a way that doesn't really speak to what the viewer cares about. If James cares about protein, that's what I'm going to lead with, not just the steak. Same goes for your videos. If your audience cares about making money, lead with that, not the advanced product research strategy you're gonna show them. If your audience is afraid of getting rejected on Tinder, lead with that and not 5 best Tinder settings. Position your thumbnails in a way that speaks to your audience interests and desires. This next mistake is so overlooked that it's probably costing you clicks without you even realizing it. Imagine seeing a movie poster with a couple dancing under the stars. You would immediately think it's a romantic movie with a happy ending, right? But then you read the movie description and it says it's a haunted house horror movie. You'd probably feel confused and a little thrown off. The poster set up an expectation that the movie description didn't match, and now you don't know what to believe. It's the same thing with your thumbnail and title. Your viewer sees the thumbnail, then the title, and if they don't align, your viewers feel that same confusion and skip your video. Take a look at this thumbnail. At first glance, it doesn't make much sense. There is a funny looking dude and someone pointing fingers at some cards, but when we introduce the title, everything starts to come together. Now imagine if we kept the same exact thumbnail but slapped on a title like "The Truth About Taylor Swift." Do you see any connection? Neither do I. But that's the mistake a lot of creators make. Recently, I worked with this channel that makes dog content. In one of their recent videos, a new puppy was introduced to the other dogs, but the puppy came in super anxious and scared. Here's the thumbnail I made. The original title they wanted to go with was "Golden Retriever meets Happy Puppy Loved Him." That doesn't really match the story at all. So let's switch it up. Let's replace happy with anxious and love with hated. And suddenly it all makes sense. Now you want to click on the video because it's actually interesting and aligns with what's in the thumbnail. Now you might be thinking, okay bro, I get it. I need to come up with a killer idea, position it according to my audience's interest, and make sure the title and thumbnail work together. But how do I even come up with an idea for the thumbnail in the first place? Well, this brings us to the next mistake, and it might sound dumb, but it's more common than you think. When creators struggle to come up with thumbnail ideas, the first thing they often do is scroll through YouTube, find a thumbnail that grabs their attention, and try to model it. The reason this is a bad strategy is because not every thumbnail style works for every niche. If you're a business creator and try to copy a Mr. Beast thumbnail with flashy faces and over-the-top reactions, it's probably not gonna resonate with your audience. Similarly, if you're making a video essay on something like why everyone hates Drake, you shouldn't model thumbnails from business creators. That just doesn't fit with the vibe. Instead, you want to look at other creators in your space. So if you make business content, you can look at guys like Hermosi or Iman Kachi. If you make video essays, you might take inspiration from Sunny V2 or other creators who are already speaking to your target audience and know what the viewers respond to. The key takeaway is to model creators who share your audience, not just anyone who's successful. But even if you model a winning format, your thumbnail might still flop harder than a Twilight reboot if you don't understand this one concept. 99% of beginner creators just copy paste what top creators are doing in their thumbnails. They think if it's working for them, it's gonna work for me too. And as a result, they end up looking like a cheap knockoff and their videos barely get 100 views. This is because audiences get tired of seeing the same format over and over and over again. So you need to stand out and be the purple cow in a field of regular cows. And to do that, you need to understand viewer psychology. Look at this thumbnail. The first thing that grabs your attention is obviously the fact that this person has 6 fingers. Then you see the $1,000 sign and it pulls you again because it taps into one of the most powerful human motivators, money. A great example of a thumbnail that plays on a viewer psychology. Now, I could make a whole video on the topic of viewer psychology, but here's a quick rundown of the 4 main things that grab attention in thumbnails. Money. Anything related to money, whether it's a dollar sign, cash, or even a graph, immediately catches the eye. That's why you see thumbnails in the business space often use these elements. Number 2, large bold text. Large, bold, and contrasting text pops out on the screen full of thumbnails and makes your message easy to read, even from a distance. Creators like Eric use this technique really well. Number 3, faces with strong emotions. So when you use a face that shows strong emotions, whether it's shock, excitement, or anger, people will naturally feel drawn to it because humans are wired to connect with faces. Number 4, contrasting colors. If everything in your thumbnail blends together, it becomes easy to overlook. But when you use colors that pop or contrast, like a bold yellow against a dark background, it grabs attention. And speaking of colors, this brings us to the next mistake that even many big creators make. You see, colors have a powerful effect on how people feel and act, especially when it comes to thumbnails. If you pick the wrong colors, it can seriously hurt your click-through rate, while making a simple tweak to the color can sometimes drastically boost your views. Just by changing the text color from red to green, I was able to boost a client's thumbnail views by 50%. So make sure the colors you choose for your thumbnails evoke the right emotion in the viewer. Here's a quick breakdown of common colors and what they represent. Red signals negativity or loss, like a graph heading downward. On the other hand, green is associated with positivity and growth. Yellow grabs attention and is often used as a warning. Colin and Samir use yellow really well in their thumbnails to catch the viewer's eye. If you observe their thumbnails, you'll notice they're incredibly simple. A clean background, a person, and some text. And it's not just Colin and Samir. Many top creators are using this minimalistic approach. What I've noticed through growing over 50 YouTube channels and gaining millions of views for my clients is that in 2024, simplicity is the key for 99% of YouTubers when it comes to making viral thumbnails. Simply put, less is more. But here's where most beginner creators mess up. They overcrowd their thumbnails with way too many elements. Remember how I mentioned that viewers check the thumbnail first, then the title? Well, here's where it gets even more challenging. Your viewer has less than 4 seconds to do both and decide if he wants to watch your video. If your thumbnail is too complicated, he'll just scroll past it. Ryan Trahan, for example, rarely uses more than 4 elements in his thumbnails. Look at this thumbnail. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, even Mr. Beast typically keeps his thumbnail to 4 to 5 elements. So don't overcomplicate your thumbnail and make it look like a failed 5th grade art project. Now, while these minimalistic thumbnails might look simple at first glance, there is a secret psychological trick that pro YouTubers are using in these thumbnails to hook your attention. Look closely at these thumbnails. Do you see something common? They all follow a similar pattern. Do you see it? Let me break it down for you. You see, growing up, I always hated reading books, thanks to the schooling system, and it's not just me. According to Google, the average American reads only 2 to 3 books a year. Most people hate reading long paragraphs, so if you overload your thumbnail with text, everyone's gonna scroll right past it. Patty Galloway, a famous YouTube strategist who's worked with creators like Mr. Beast, says you should stick to around 3 to 5 words on a thumbnail. But most beginner creators make the mistake of overloading the thumbnail with too much text, thinking it'll create intrigue. But all it does is turn the viewer off. Instead, choose a short, interesting goal or hook from the video and use that as the thumbnail text. So you've got banger ideation, solid packaging, minimalistic design, and short text. Now you know all the secrets, right? Well, not quite, because this next mistake is more common than accidentally liking a photo from 3 years ago while stalking your ex. Many creators spend hours, sometimes days, in Photoshop perfecting minor details on their thumbnails. Like this one thumbnail I made. I spent hours fine-tuning every little thing, adding shadows, highlights, but when I zoomed out, I couldn't see crap. Even experienced creators forget that people watch YouTube across multiple platforms: TV, tablet, mobile, computer. So that thumbnail you design on your 27-inch monitor, it's gonna get shrunk down, and all those minor details you worked so hard on will disappear. It's crazy how many times I've had to tell creators to increase the size of their text or key elements, and just by doing that, they saw a noticeable boost in their CDR. So always zoom out and make sure each element is clear and noticeable from a distance. Another common misconception beginner creators have is that their thumbnails need to look like some fancy Picasso art. But I hate to break it to you, viewers don't jump on YouTube to check out an art show. They want to be entertained or learn something new. In short, they care about value, less about aesthetics. Think about it. Why did you click on your last video? It wasn't just because the thumbnail looked cool, right? It was because you spotted something valuable in the thumbnail that indicated that the video will help solve your problem or reach a goal. Take Alex Hormozi's thumbnails, for example. I mean, they're solid, but they're not exactly the best art piece in the world. The reason you click on them is because the benefits are clear. I mean, who doesn't want to make a crap ton of money? Same goes for Iman Gachi's thumbnails. They're simple but effective. And if it works for the big dogs, it'll work for you too. So focus more on showing value and less on trying to create an art piece. After making over thousands of thumbnails, I've noticed that the simplest way to communicate value and make your thumbnail more understandable is through contrast. Take a look at this Iman Gachi thumbnail. There's a clear contrast between the dark background and Iman wearing white. This makes every element pop. In Ryan Drahan's recent video about testing one-star airlines, you can see a big difference between Ryan's purple neck pillow and the plane. Mr. Beast nails this too in his recent video, Men vs. Women Survive the Wilderness for $500,000. There's a clear contrast between the two sections. And yes, while Mr. Beast is known for his over-the-top style, the idea of contrast is still crucial, even if you're in a niche like gardening or finance. This brings us to the last and biggest sin creators commit with their thumbnails: the forbidden C word. Your packaging should set an expectation for the viewer, but if the video quality doesn't deliver, they'll probably leave dissatisfied and never come back. There's a fine line between good quality content and the C word, clickbait, but there's a little known loophole that only the top creators know when it comes to using clickbait. Take this Mr. Beast thumbnail. For example, there's no point in the video where that scenario actually happened to Jimmy, but the quality was so good that nobody noticed and called it clickbait. So even if your thumbnail hints at something that doesn't actually happen in the video, if the content is solid and it meets the viewer's expectations, you can push the boundaries of clickbait, but be careful to use it only to a certain extent. Those were the 12 most common thumbnail mistakes creators make with their thumbnails that can really kill their views. Let me know in the comments which ones you've already made, and if you want to see how a professional thumbnail designer makes a thumbnail that gets 1 million plus views from scratch, click on this next video.